What is going on, everyone? MikeO back doing another PSA DNA reveal video. Every few months I've been getting something in from PSA DNA, so it's always fun. Takes me back to old times when I used to grade a ton with PSA. In recent years, I've moved more into SGC and even CGC for some lower end stuff. Not opposed to grading some more stuff with PSA in the future, just a lot of issues with them over recent years. Of course, this was only out a few months, so it wasn't too bad. Turnaround time was decent. No complaints about that. But it's a 51 card order, all just autograph authentication, no card authentication or anything like that. So the most basic of services, they're just authenticating the autograph itself and encapsulating the cards, which for a lot of autograph collectors, that's enough. Sure, does the flip look a little better if it were to say, 1989 tops? Sure. But that is a much longer wait and a more expensive thing to have done. So anyway, 51 card order. Got some cards for some friends as well. Got a stack here for Ed, who is Wesker Griff here on YouTube. Got a stack here for Scott, who's Big Scott 35 on YouTube. And got a stack here for Nick, who is Web of Cards. And then I have a stack of stuff for myself as well. So let's roll through this order. We will start with Nick's cards first, which is this stack here. He's got a cool one right off. To start it off with Uncle Larry, Andrew McCutchen on the Allen and Ginter from 2021. So very cool card there. So an Andrew McCutchen authentic for Nick. Oh, and I should say all 51 cards sent, everyone was authenticated and encapsulated. So that's really nice. Usually you have one or two that they're unable to slab. We've got a Jay Leno here from WCW. So a Jay Leno auto. The rest are going to be baseball. So this stack here, you got a nice mix. That's why I started with Nick's. He's got a bunch of different non-sports and sports stuff. So we got a Richard Petty. Richard Petty, always been a really good signer. It's a neat one. But myself and Ed will be very Phillies heavy. And actually, all four people who submitted cards have Phillies cards in their order. Scott, who's a Mets fan, got some Phillies cards done, and even Nick with that McCutchen. So some Roger Federer, so some tennis cards here. I think there's 4 of these. So some say, this says trading card because it was an official release. This one just says card because it was a custom-made one. So nice Roger Federer. Another Federer. And Sports Illustrated for Kids. I'm surprised they didn't label this one as trading card because that is an official release and you could get this card graded through them if you wanted to. We got a little Tony Danza action. Who's the boss? Angels in the outfield. That's pretty cool. And Taxi. Got to get a garbage kicking, field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon. All right, here's a Billy Crystal. That's a neat one there. Billy Crystal, former Yankee. I remember his spring training game. I think he got one at bat. Michael Lindell, the MyPillow guy. See this guy enough if you watch any daytime TV at all ever. And Dana White. So neat one there. So really fun order there for Nick. Nice stack of slabs coming Nick's way. Add it back into his collection. All right, we'll do Big Scott 35, who's right here in the middle. Scott got some Mets done and some former Phillies players. So here's a Bill Allman on the old school Donruss card. Or is that Fleer? That's Fleer. 1981 Fleer. Tommy Green. He was a member of the 1993 Phillies. Also threw a no-hitter for the Phillies in 1991. This is a 92 Donruss Highlights card. So a couple of them for Scott, and I believe Tommy Green is from Virginia. There you go. Richmond, Virginia. He now resides actually very close to one of my brothers. Has a P.O. box there in Warrington. And that's where he signed some TTMs out of. There's some John Kruk. John Kruk from West Virginia. He, believe, resides mostly in Florida now and has a place in Philadelphia as well. He does do some Phillies announcing. So here's the 88 Fleer Kruk. All these Kruks are in the Padres uniform. I'm waiting for Scott to get one in a White Sox uniform someday. There's a Kruk on the 89 Fleer. And the the score, I should say. So 3 John Kruks there. Then we got Tommy Herr. Probably best known for his time with the Cardinals, being part of the championship club, but he did play for the Mets as well. So this 90 Bowman signed by Tommy Herr. And then, shockingly, Scott got yet another Philly. And this is an awesome card. I love the look of this card. 1990 Topps Tommy Herr. And then a couple more Mets to wrap it up. We got Walt Terrell. Fleer card. And then a Frank Viola. 91 score. Frank Viola had some really good years in baseball. As you can see the back of this. Winning 24 games for the 88 Twins. As part of the 87 Twins championship team. So 91 score. Frank Viola. So those are the cards for Big Scott 35. Now we got some cards for myself and some cards for Ed. So anyone who likes obscure baseball players, or best of both worlds, if you like obscure baseball players and you're a Phillies fan, you're going to probably see some gems in here. So Ed starts it off with a Stan Lapata. That's a TCMA card. Lapata was a good player for the Phils for quite a while. He's got a bunch of cards in the 50s. Neat one there. You got Kurt Simmons. He's lived locally for a long time. Passed away recently. Good friends with Bobby Shantz. Good pitcher, too, for the Phillies. You got the 59 Topps. Wayne Gomes. This is a 1993 draft picks. Wayne Gomes, he actually had some successful years for the Phillies out of the bullpen. He was a very hyped prospect, so he probably didn't live up to that hype, but was good overall. We've got Mel Clark on the Color TV Bowman. So that's a cool one there for Ed. Ed got some vintage stuff done. And then 1993 Leaf. Ed got a little run of these, some of the 93 Phillies. You got Mariano Duncan. This would have been kind of cool to get signed by Jay Bell and Mickey Morandini as well. They're both pretty decent signers. So cool Mariano Duncan. He was an all-star for the Phillies. You got Kevin Stocker, current radio announcer for the Phillies and a member of that 93 club. Another 93 Leaf. It's Pete Incaviglia. David West, who unfortunately one of a lot of 93 Phillies, a lot of Phillies in the organization have passed away. But David West on that 93 Leaf. So 93 Leaf, really nice cards. I mean, the back of these cards is sensational. As you can see, they just did a great job. I mean, usually companies don't put a ton of effort into the back, but you see the different backs there. Liberty Bell, City Hall. So Very, very neat looking cards. It's a really nice set, and I know Ed's mentioned being a big fan of that set in the past. Here's an awesome Topps Heritage Charlie Manuel card. I miss Topps not putting out a few manager cards. I'm not saying I need them in every set. They don't need to go over the top, but either in Heritage or even Topps, I mean, manager card wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. There's certain managers, of course, people aren't going to care. Rob Thompson, a pennant-winning manager for the Phillies. I think a lot of Phillies fans would love collecting those cards. And Charlie Manuel, like, super happy that they produced some stuff. And this is a great-looking card, great-looking autograph there. So congrats to Ed on that one. Jamie Moyer, another world champion Philly on a Topps Heritage. This is also another, I mean, I've said this a bunch of times, but this is really cool. Dick Groat, action-packed auto. Dick Groat, not best known for being a Philly, but that is awesome. Here is a 93 Fleer Ultra, Todd Pratt, who was the backup catcher for the 93 Phillies. Also had a huge playoff moment for the Mets. And then was back with the Phillies late in his career and had some memorable moments there. Had an incredible home run against the Boston Red Sox in a big series in the early 2000s. So Todd Pratt, generally speaking, was a backup catcher, but had a really, really good career overall. And final one, definitely one you're not going to see every day. Kiko Garcia, second baseman of the Phillies, in the powder blue on the 1984 Donruss. He was an Oriole and an Astro and a Philly. So 3 of Ed's favorite teams, the Orioles, the Astros, and the Phillies. And then we have a stack of stuff for myself. And then we actually have 2 larger items there to the left. So let's go through some of mine here. So we start off with a 93 Philly. Did not pitch in the postseason. Wasn't eligible. Was acquired too late. Was acquired in August. But Bobby Thigpen, for quite a while, he was the all-time single-season saves leader, having an incredible year for the White Sox in the early 90s. But here's a Bobby Thigpen. Not someone who signs a lot. Not an easy autograph to obtain, and not necessarily always a cheap one. So happy to get that one on the 94 Donruss. Got Brad Miller on the Topps Heritage. Very neat one there. 2-time Philly. Another one of those guys who just had an impact as a bench player, like a fun bench player who came through quite a bit. All right, this is for the random oddball. Julio Peguero. Honestly, probably saw him play as a kid a little bit, but did not... I don't believe he got more than a handful of at-bats. But when you run across something like that, it's kind of shocking they can even authenticate something like that. Here's a childhood favorite, Bruce Chen. I mean, that was probably closer to a teenager when he was acquired, but he was a huge prospect for the Atlanta Braves and actually pitched pretty decent in his time with the Phillies. Ended up pitching for the Expos a little bit as well. And I believe the Mets. I don't think he made his way to the Marlins. Otherwise, he could have pitched the entire National League East. But Bruce Chen. Got Paul Byrd. He was an all-star for the Phillies. Had a nice year there in 1999. He was a Met, a Brave, and a Philly. I think he got back into. He actually made it into the major leagues. By opening some eyes as a replacement player, if I remember right, during the little experiment that was going on in 94. But Paul Byrd. Got an Eric Milton. Eric Milton had a nice little run for the Phillies. Wasn't there long. Nearly threw a no-hitter. Ball was kind of misplayed in center field. The defensive replacement broke back instead of breaking in. I remember watching that game. He was so dominant. Also pitched no-hitters for the Twins. So Eric Milton, good big league arm. Omar Dahl, who was either really good or really bad. I think he lost like 20 games once and nearly won 20 games another year. So Omar Dahl, he was actually acquired, one of 4 players who was acquired in the Kurt Schilling trade. Got Jeff Manto, technically a 93 Philly, had about 18 at-bats for the Phillies in 1993, was not part of the postseason or anything. Local guy to the Philadelphia area, so for that reason, always a fan favorite. Had some okay seasons, I believe, with the Baltimore Orioles. Actually had a starting lineup produced of him as an Oriole. So Jeff Manto autograph. I think this specific card is his only Phillies card release. Got Greg Dobbs, member of the 08 Phillies, here on the Topps card. So very cool to get a Greg Dobbs. Anytime I can get one of the world champion players autograph and then you can get it encapsulated, why not? I mean, memories that'll last a lifetime. Here's Chad Durbin, also a member of the 08 Phillies. Kind of was signed to be a starter, but ended up working out as a reliever and actually did a really good job. And he was actually brought back, I believe, for a short stint a couple years later. And then he actually was a part-time announcer for a while with the Phillies, and I thought he did pretty well. They were rotating announcers on the radio on the road. Here's Yoel Hernandez. Honestly, I have basically no memory of this guy pitching for the Phillies, and that says a lot if I don't remember you. Because I generally remember just about everyone. Only pitched a few games for the Phillies, but he did get a card in 27, Allen and Ginter. This card, he's one of those obscure players. You're not going to run into him, and he's not going to exactly do a lot of signings. And I remember seeing this card forever for like $40. And I'm not paying $40 for that card. I eventually got this card at the Philly show for like $2 out of a box, and paid money to have it slabbed to, one, go into my Allen and Ginter autograph collection, and 2, my Phillies Allen and Ginter autograph collection. So very cool. So that's neat. We got a Connor Brogdon, part of the 2022 Phillies NL Championship run. This year he struggled a little bit, ended up getting sent down to the minors and being injured. So we'll see if we see him back in 2023. I would assume probably not, but perhaps in the future. So Connor Brogdon. And last card is Gene Shaw, former prospect for the Phillies, who never quite worked out. Had a handful of games in the big leagues, but never really worked out the way, of course, you'd want. And to be honest, that's the way most prospects work out. That's why prospecting with sports cards it's lose most of the time proposition for sure. All right, so I have 2 bigger cards to show off here, and bigger I mean by size, or 2 items I should say. So first off, and I don't think this is the way Ed particularly wanted it, but it's a CD insert, signed and authenticated for Brandon Flowers, PSA DNA, The Killers, Pressure Machine. So CD insert is how they labeled it. So neat one there for Ed's music collection. And then this I got done mostly because, well, this guy never had an official trading card release as a Philly. It's Pete Orr. So I might be the first person ever to send a Pete Orr card in for autograph authentication. Maybe not. Who knows? But they just labeled it as card. This is the, it's about 5x7 Phillies photo cards, as they call them. So they'd release them every year for years and years. When I was down at the ballpark earlier this year, they did not have any. So I don't know if this is the first year they're not producing them or if they just weren't ready yet. I'm not sure. Maybe with the Fanatics, exclusive stuff, they're not doing it. I mean, they were always oversized, so I think they were always able to do them because they were called photo cards. But Pete Orr closes it out. So that is it for the order. PSA DNA. Like I said, pretty quick turnaround time. I don't have the date in front of me here, but I'd probably estimate 3 months or so, which when you started to get used to waiting 6 months, 8 months, a year, it's not too bad. So comment below. Let me know what you think of the order. A lot of fun stuff. anything of super high value, not particularly, but very, very cool stuff for different types of collectors, different collectors. So appreciate you guys watching. Have a great one.